Getting Right with God. Session 1, Introduction and Foundations. Part 1.
If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Everybody say foundations. If the foundations be destroyed, say, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? There seems to be a gap or a contradiction between saying we are a follower of Jesus and actually being a follower of Jesus. There's a divide between the two. There's a gap between the two. A contradiction between where we really are and where we need to be or should be. Is that right? That's why a number of you have come around here to study this, because you know that gap is there. And that's why I created this book here, because it helps and it will help you build a strong foundation. The strong foundation then will help you develop in your walk with Christ. Because of this, foundation matters. Everyone say foundation matters. We cannot start wrong and expect to finish right. We cannot start wrong and expect to finish strong. It's just not going to happen. So foundation means the fundamentals of a subject. The foundation is something you can build on. It's always that. But if you build on something that is not strong, then the structure that goes up will not be strong, will not stand. And that's the problem I think we're having. That's the problem I see. So, on the other hand, if the foundation is strong and solid, the end product will be strong and solid. Yes. So let me take that into you. If your foundation is strong and solid, so the end product will be strong and solid. Amen. Now, when we talk to people, and I certainly talk to a lot of people and share with a lot of people, I find people say different things. Well, I met Christ, but my walk is not strong. I met Christ, but I'm not doing well now. I met Christ, I gave my heart to him, but it's not working. I become alarmed when I hear those kind of things, because we could either agree and say, well, perhaps you're right, perhaps it doesn't work. Or we could say, well, maybe your idea of meeting him was not built on a strong foundation. Maybe you didn't have the right principles involved. So a foundation, understand this, is not the complete building, right? Someone said they were an engineer here, I think. The foundation is the structure that holds everything else up, but it is not the complete building. I marvel at buildings. I'm always curious when buildings go up, and I don't know if you are like I am, but in my neighborhood, if there's a new building going under construction, for some reason, I think part of it was that I've always wanted to be an architect. And when I got into school and took mechanical drawing and had all the architectural tools, I just found that I couldn't draw very well. Now that's a really bad thing when you want to be an architect. And my peers, they drew, and when they even made a mistake and they erased, you couldn't even see where the mistake was. And when I erased, there was a hole in the paper and there was a smudge in the paper, and I looked at it and I go, this is not working. And so I didn't pursue that. But I love it when buildings go up. I'm always curious to see what the final building looks like. And driving through Los Angeles, there was a building that I'd read about that was going up, and they were going to build this diocese, the LA Diocese of the Catholic Church, on the 101 freeway. And so all of a sudden the screening went around, and the cranes came in and they started to build. But you know, all I saw for the next several years was just the cranes. And I thought, did they stop work on the edifice? Did they stop? Did they shut down? But the cranes were still moving. And do you want to know something? It was at least, to me it seemed like at least 2 years that those cranes were working. What were they working on? They were working on the foundation. And after about 2 years, then guess what? Walls started to go up. And they went up quickly. And then the ceiling went up. And it wasn't very long till the whole beautiful church was built. But what took a long time was the foundation. I think we need to place more importance on the foundation of our commitment to Jesus Christ. And so this Getting Right book is about building a right foundation in the area of salvation. Now, foundation matters because a solid foundation involves the right ingredients. Does that make sense to everybody? You have to have the right ingredients. Now, have you ever heard about someone, when a building is collapsed, even an earthquake takes place, the building crumbles down, what do they look at first? The structure, the foundational structure of that building. And they can say, wait a minute, this building wasn't built right. The foundation wasn't right. The materials used in this foundation were poor. And because the foundation was not structured right, therefore the building fell. Does that make sense to everybody? So the ingredients in the foundation are very strong. Part of the foundation, part of the structure, the materials in building that foundation is a change of heart. Everyone say a change of heart. Another thing that's involved is a change of motive. Say a change of motive. And another thing that's involved is a change of a way of living. Say a way of living. So there needs to be change in these three areas for us to build a solid foundation. So that means you can't just come to Jesus and say, okay, I accept you. But there's no change in your heart. There's no change in your motive. There's no change in your way of living. A change of heart involves this, the who. Who am I living for? Say it. Who am I living for? That's the question we have to answer. Because before Christ, before we give our lives to Christ, who are we living for? Come on, say it. Ourselves. We're living to please ourselves. It's about me, isn't it? Does it make any sense to you when we come to Christ and we've been living in the kingdom called the kingdom of self, and now we come to him because we want to come into the kingdom of God, right? A kingdom always involves what? A king, thank you. It involves a king, and it involves something else. It involves a kingdom of people. It involves people, and it involves one other thing. Rules, laws. Every kingdom has to have laws. Christ is the king of the kingdom. The rules are in his book, and we are his people, right? So does it make any sense to say, I have been in the kingdom of self, and now I'm going to meet Christ, but I'm going to stay in the kingdom of self? Does that make any sense? It doesn't make sense, but yet we don't tell anybody that that's what's happening. So we need to say, when we come to Christ, we are leaving the kingdom of self to go over to his kingdom. And if we don't do that, then we have the problems and the issues that go on. Why am I not changed? Why don't I feel close to Christ? Why aren't I victorious? Why? Because you're still living to please yourself and not please the king. So who should you be living for once you make that commitment to come to Christ? Who should you be living for? Christ. On the motive is why? Why? So here's the question you ask yourself. Why am I doing the things I'm doing? That's a great question. So why am I doing the things I'm doing? Am I doing the things I'm doing to please myself? Do you realize that a lot of people come to Christ to enhance their own blessings, to enhance their own life, to enhance their own success. That's selfishness. That's living in that other kingdom. And that's not what we're supposed to do. It's a change of not only heart, it's a change of motive. Come on, folks, I have to die. That's a hard thing. That's the hardest thing. This is the hardest decision you'll ever make because we have to die. We don't want to die to ourselves. We've been serving ourselves for how long? Luckily, when you get someone like Paulette, well, she met Christ at 5. That's a lot easier. I'm not going to serve myself anymore. For 5 years, I've served myself, you know. I had all the candy I wanted, you know. I'm not going to do that. From now on, I belong to Jesus. That's why we need to reach the children, isn't it? Yes. But we have all these habits of growing, of learning to depend on ourselves and please ourselves. And the way of living is the how. So the heart is, who is it I'm going to serve? I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm going to serve me. The motive is, why am I doing the things I'm doing? And then, how do I change? Does my way of living show a change in my heart? Now, come on, folks. We're looking around today, and it is hard to tell a Christian from a non-Christian. We do the same things. We want the same things. We please ourselves. We're selfish. And there's no difference. And the world sees that, and they say, you're just a bunch of hypocrites. Why do you even go? And that's what a lot of our kids say. Why do I even go? There's no change in my heart. My dad was in prison when I was born. And he was a very bad man, and he was a very hard man. He was a cold man. But it's a long story, and you'll get to hear it sometime in internship. It's a lovely story where it ended. But thank God to a little old lady, and I love little old ladies, and I have ever since. It's hard for me to say that now because I'm a little old man. You understand that? I used to be a teenager, a youth director, and I'd say, I love little old ladies, and my youth group would go, why? I say, because they're powerful. There's nothing more scary than a little old lady or a little old man who knows how to pray, because they're more scary than bombs or jet planes. They pray down heaven, you know. So I got my young people to love little old ladies, but now when I say it, they go, you like little old ladies, you know. So I gotta watch what I say now. But this little old lady came, and she was instrumental in talking to my dad. He cursed her. He threw her out of the house. He was a dying man. He had about 2 or 3 months left to live, and he didn't want anything to do with God or the church or her for sure. But thank God for this woman who loved God. Just a little old lady who wasn't a professional anything, except she was a lover of Jesus. And she knew what it was to have a solid foundation in her life. And he told her never to come back, and she came back every day. You know, but she didn't talk about Jesus because her foundation was so strong, she didn't have to talk about Jesus. She became Jesus. And that's how my dad, he saw that. He'd never seen that. He certainly didn't see that in his old life. He certainly didn't see that in prison. He certainly didn't see it in the traditional church. But all of a sudden, he saw someone who walked and talked and lived like someone he'd never seen before, like an alien from another planet. Because of that, eventually, he gave his heart to the Lord. And he was changed, and he was healed. God healed him. He didn't die in 3 months. He was healed. So I got to tell you this. When my dad changed from old life to new life, he changed. I mean, nothing was the same. He threw everything out that was the past, and everything that was Jesus was new. Well, you know, I knew my dad loved the Lord, and my mom loved the Lord as I grew up in the house. They loved God. That's all they talked about. That's all they slept about. That's all they ate. He ran a business, but everybody who came into the business, he talked to about Jesus. He didn't care whether they liked it or not. People said, you're going to ruin your business. Yeah, that's not my business. My business is talking about Jesus. I don't care what they think. Well, I saw all that. And my dad restricted me pretty much on what I could do and not do. So there was this list of things I could do and not do. I don't know if you've ever grown up like that in the church. But as you get older, you start to question that list, don't you? And start to think, well, wait, you know, that may be good for my parents, but I'd like to try some of the stuff that's out there. And so you start fooling around. You and your friends at church start, not on Sunday, of course, because that was the holy day, but other days you start doing stuff. And it became this pattern where on Sunday, that was my time to get back to God. But on Monday through Saturday, that was my time to conform to the world, you know? And it's not an easy life to live. And I struggled because I knew what my folks were living was true and right, but it wasn't in me. I didn't have that same compassion. I didn't have that passion for God. I didn't have the whole motivation of my life that everything I was going to do was for Jesus. I didn't have it. No one ever talked to me about it. I just knew there were rules there. And as the time changed and our friends changed, they said, well, those rules are old-fashioned. And so I thought if I served more, I would be more, but that never worked. I went to a Bible college because I thought if I went to a Bible college, that would change. And I even graduated from there and went into the ministry. But this double standard was still in me. I was saying all the right things. I was doing all the right things. But I wasn't being right. The inside did not match what I knew it should match. And so I had this really difficult time talking to the young people in my group about completely selling out to Jesus. Why did I have that problem? Because I wasn't sold out to Jesus. That's a hard way to live, folks. It's a really difficult way. That's why the Bible says it's better that you're cold or hot, not lukewarm, because lukewarm is the tough way to live. Because you're pulled by both sides. I knew one side was right and one side was wrong, but I wanted to walk down the middle. So this whole thing that was going in my life started to make me understand what my folks had and what I had were two different things. Yeah, I'd accepted Jesus. I prayed that prayer, and and I know he heard it, but something was wrong. Why wasn't I like that? Or some of the other people that I saw like that. And then one day, I met a young man that was my age. And he was sold out living for Jesus, and it blew me away. And so I started to realize there was a counterfeit conversion and a true conversion. Now, beware of counterfeit conversions, right? Counterfeit looks like, feels like, may taste like, and smell like the real thing, but it's not real. Counterfeit is phony and forged and bogus and fake. Counterfeit doesn't produce the genuine, does it? When we come to Jesus because we feel he's called us, we come, because we want a real or deeper relationship. How many have come for that reason? Because I feel Jesus has called me to come. That's why you've come to him. Or because you've wanted a deeper relationship, that's why you've come to him, right? Then here's what we do. Because we haven't left the kingdom of self, we start telling him how to do it in our life. We start listening to others. This is what I was sharing earlier. We have got to be committed to the Word of God because people walk in their own guilt. And when you come to them and say you have a problem, they will say, it's okay, don't worry about it. Everything's covered, you're fine. And you know it's not. But you go to the Word and that's not where the Word says. The Word will make you whole. So we need to be in the Word. Does that make sense? In much of today's climate, coming to Christ is just adding him to become part of our stuff, hoping he will be useful someday. How many are collectors of stuff? Oh my gosh. Kathy, my wife, raised her hand. I have to say this. I'd like to just blame her, but we all collect stuff. She just collects more stuff. We have buckets full of stuff, right, at our house. Wait till you get married. You think, we get 2 suitcases. We went on honeymoon. That's what we got. Then all of a sudden, in 2 years, you got to move, and you've got to get a semi-truck to move your stuff. Your garage fills with stuff. We have so much stuff that you have to put it in storage. Because you can't park your car in the garage anymore because that's already filled with your stuff. Then you get storage. We have stuff. So we're collectors of stuff. And you know what? We make Jesus part of our stuff. And that breaks his heart. And it should break our heart too, because he's not part of our stuff. We should let all of our stuff go when we meet him. But counterfeit conversion is making him part of our stuff so that when we need him, we can call upon him, but for no other reason. Many who call themselves Christians are not real followers of Christ. I'm going to say it again. Today, many who call themselves Christians are not real followers of Christ. Here's why. They have no intention of giving up their selfish way of living and only want to add him to their long list of possessions. That's pretty sad.